at the age of 10, my teacher, I was like dancing around the school, and my teacher was like to me, stop showing off. Nobody likes to show off. I was 10. And I learned at that point that to shine is like self-indulgent. Women don't like it.
Becki, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
I feel like this is just going to be our audience as a fly on the wall listening to us catch up, because it's such a treat to hear where you're at and reflect on the journey that you've been on. I know you've inspired so many women and continue to. And tell me about your kind of career goals then and your aspirations growing up. What did you, because the type of job that you and I both have now wasn't something on the list of kind of job options when you were assessing what you wanted to be when you grew up. So what did you imagine you'd be doing?
So interesting, because there was always two parts of me, and I was for a long time like fighting them both. And I was so young, I didn't understand what any of it meant. And actually, I look back now and I'm like, I wasn't meant to understand. It all kind of made sense. But I always dreamt of, there was this like tomboy. I was such a tomboy as a child, like such a tomboy. I played football, I played basketball, I hung out with all the boys. I like was a boy racer. I was biking around on a bicycle, but I was also really girly too. There was something I craved about that. So what was really interesting is I was always really torn between, I want to work, and I was really passionate about this. Like, I really want to work in a glamorous office, wear nice heels to work.
Have a BlackBerry.
Literally have a BlackBerry, a nice handbag. And I was such a TV junkie, I think, like fairy tale movie, rom-com vibes, like Devil Wears Prada vibes, that I kind of aspired to that. What was really interesting is I went to uni and really randomly changed my mind about what I wanted to do. And I was like, do you know what? Everything is sports related. I'm done being the only girl in a class with all guys. A lot of my teachers were quite sexist as well. You know, girls shouldn't be doing football. Like, it was quite difficult. So I was like, I want something new. And I went and did advertising and marketing. And I think that changed everything. And from there, kind of fell in love with magazines. And that's where I was like, I really want to work in a publishing house. So I always say this to people, like, I believe totally the career that I had in publishing and marketing and sales at Hearst, I completely manifested it. I visualized it. I had like magazine prints up on my wall as a child. I literally like went to sleep dreaming of myself getting the tube to work in heels. And my mum used to laugh at me because I'd come home in trainers and be exhausted. And she'd be like, you were so desperate to get the train to work. Like, don't you regret that? And I was like, yes, I regret it. And the office isn't anything like what you see in the movies. But yeah, I had these big dreams to work in a corporate like environment, working for incredible brands. Like, I always dreamt of doing that. So I definitely think as a young child, like, I knew from the get-go, like, I want to go big. I'm not here to play small. 100%. I always had that fire in my belly, always.
Mm-hmm. And so you had this successful career at Hearst, and it was at that time that we met. I remember you were still working there full time. I remember we met in Farm Stand in Covent Garden, and you were kind of setting up a few side hustles. And I really want to dive into this because for so many of our listeners, they may be in that transition, or they may be in that kind of early part of their career where, you know, they're still doing other jobs to fund the growth of a business, or, you know, that period is so critical. And I went through the same period of kind of side hustling. So tell me about that. Like, where were you in your career, and what was the instigator of kind of starting to explore options outside of that?
I actually love that, because I think actually, you know what, I still think I side hustle now slightly. Like, parts of my business I feel are side hustles. And it was only really recently that I took my finger out of certain pies, like, to stop the side hustle. I think part of from the age of 15, I was sent out to work. That felt like, so essentially side hustling to earn money whilst I was getting my degree or going to college. So I think the side hustle thing came like from the moment I was sent out to work. My jobs always felt like side hustling. Like, and I always had 4 or 5 jobs on the go so that I could earn money while I was at uni. And then the big side hustle, you know what, it was a total accident. And this is something I say to my clients all the time. And I truly believe the fact that my business started as a side hustle and was for a very long time was allowed it to go where it went, because had the freedoms. And for 2 years, I side hustled. I was working this corporate job to which, like, 100%, I had got it to the point where I was managing. I wasn't doing anymore. My team were making everything happen. So I had quite a flexible role that paid me well. And this is definitely something I always say to my clients when they're transitioning as well. I'm always like, if your current job doesn't give you the energy or space, can you move into something that's either slightly more like the industry that you're in, or does give you more freedom and flexibility? So I was really blessed. For 2 years, I was personal training people at like 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m., getting on the train, going to work, PTing people at lunchtime, going home, PTing people in the evening, and then coming home and working on my blog till 1 a.m. Like it was side hustle central.
I did the same, it's sort of like, okay, what are the skills that I've developed in my career that I could do as a freelancer or as a consultant to be able to fund this new venture? And I always remember Marie Forleo saying, when she first started her business, she was working 3 jobs, one as a dance instructor, one behind a bar, and that, there's no shame in having to do that. No. And so again, like having this conversation with you and for those listening, it's, if you need to do another job or a consulting project or look at how you can use your it's a resourcefulness thing, isn't it? To take pressure off having to desperately get clients or, establish yourself as an expert quickly. It does take time to build that expertise, which is what this podcast is all about, right? Yeah. How do you build authority? How do you build a reputation? How do you become that go-to expert in your field? And there's no way around the fact that it takes time, right? You've got to cement yourself, build a community. Reputation takes time to build. And so I want to talk about how you've done that, how you've built this reputation. And part of it is showing up and being visible. And so I'd love for you to kind of just talk through some of the practical ways in which you've built this engaged community where you can almost sell them whatever you want to sell because they love you and they're invested in you, and you have gone on this kind of evolutionary journey to where you are right now. So can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think what's so interesting about communities, I think there's a few fears that like new coaches have when they come into the industry, like A, I haven't been in it for long enough. So am I really good? Are people going to want to work with me? Am I experienced? And B, like, I don't have a huge following. So how am I going to build a community or have trusted loyalty? And like, whilst I have a following and I love my following, it's grown over years, but I've also lost followers over years where I've transitioned into my niche. And I think that actually I always understood the importance of like relationships. And I think particularly when I was blogging, and I came out of my corporate career, I already had contacts in the sales space. That was my job. It was relationship building. So I kind of knew, and I think there were so many things I did. I went to every single event that ever existed. And obviously we don't have as many events now, but like I would come to the world to do events. I would go to every single event I ever got introduced to, and I'd go on my own and I would connect with people and I would just go and talk to them, or I'd DM people on my Instagram and just make friends. And it was always authentic. It was always with people I knew that I'd really get on well with. I think that's really important. So I really like networks. And I actually think the community side of things is because I love my job so much. I genuinely want to speak to everyone that's in my industry, sometimes to my detriment. Sometimes, sometimes I'm like, I need to have more boundaries. I just reply to everyone. But I definitely think for me, it was about getting out there. The following, like the social media following that got built was definitely all around. I was tagging brands. I was going to events. I was being retagged by brands. I was meeting other influencers with a high following and I was getting tagged by them. I definitely think that to be like the go-to and to build a network, you really do have to be brave enough and bold enough to be yourself, but also niche off for sure. I was trying to do everything. And I think the moment that I really was like, you know what, I'm going to own it as a business coach that works with wellness experts at the beginning. And, the niche before that was a personal trainer. So I kind of say to my clients all the time, you can evolve, you're allowed to evolve.
Right. It's not a tattoo.
Yeah, 100%. And especially when it comes to your experience, one of the things I see all the time is experts trying to get as many qualifications as they can at the beginning to help boost their confidence to feel ready to take on clients. And actually, it took me years of working with women to know that, now I want to go into hypnosis and psychotherapy. Like, had I have done that all at the beginning, I wouldn't have got the practical experience. So a lot of my building a network was just about getting out there, making a start and figuring it out as I went along, really, honestly.
Yeah. Well, that's important permission. Like even for somebody listening, hearing that gives you permission to say, oh, right, so I don't have to have it all figured out right now. Let's talk a little bit about that worth piece. I often challenge my clients to stop thinking about it as their self-worth and actually think about the worth of their expertise and everything that they know and have the ability to teach somebody. And that if you can help a client get to where they want to be faster than they could get there on their own, then you're already in business, right?
Yeah.
But I remember when you were making this transition into business coaching, again, like deep down, you knew that you had the skills. And I think you also, I remember having that conversation where I was like, Becki, you've already been doing this. Like we're just putting a new label on it. Tell us about some of those kind of fears and challenges that from a mindset perspective, you had to overcome of, I've been, doing this for free. And actually, I love doing it so much. I would do it for free, to starting to package it up and brand it and create a business around your expertise.
I definitely think I see what I went through. I've realized now, like, this is what I see with all the clients that we work with as well. Is like, nobody really is afraid of their ability. Most women know that they can do what they want to do. And I did. Like you said, I knew I was as capable, but I was scared to shine. I was scared to step out of my comfort zone. I was scared of my friends to ridicule me, judge me. I was scared of how other people would react, particularly the mindset piece stuff. I think it's become cool now to talk about gratitude and manifestation and mindfulness, but it really wasn't 4 years ago at all. You were actually really weird and kooky. And there was a lot of that I had to really overcome, is what would my friends say when I'm talking about meditation? And, because even my personal training piece was about loving yourself from within. And that's where I really realized I want to help women on a whole different level. It wasn't about their body. It was so much deeper than that. And so it was difficult. I think for me, I made a commitment to myself that I was unafraid to shine. And that if I wanted my clients to have confidence in me, I had to show up for them. I had to make myself my first client. And I say this to all of my clients, you have to do what you are wanting your clients to do.
Let's talk about Get Lit, because, this is the brand that, you manifested that became the manifestation of everything that you've just talked about, that women need to give themselves permission to shine.
Yeah. I think for me, as someone, I always tell this story, and if anyone's listening that has heard this a number of times, but it's so important. At the age of 10, my teacher, I was dancing around the school, and my teacher was like to me, stop showing off. Nobody likes to show off. I was 10. And I learned at that point that to shine is self-indulgent. Women don't like it. People don't. And you see that in society today a lot. And I have to also sometimes question myself. If I ever notice a moment where I'm like, oh, she loves herself, I have to literally be like, whoa, good for her. She loves herself. That's exactly what we want. And I think Get Lit for me is so interesting because I had a number of businesses that all were quite erratic, I would say. I was doing everything I could to try and make them big businesses. And with Get Lit, I actually have just followed the intuition. And what we're doing with Get Lit now is really interestingly some of the things that I had envisioned for when I was doing alternatively healthy. But I remember with Get Lit, something came to me, and I would think I was on a retreat in Thailand, and this word just came to me about lighting up. And I always felt really called to help women shine, connect to their intuition, remove self-doubt. And obviously all of those things are really important when it comes to starting a business. If you don't do the mindset work and you don't have the confidence to show up, then you're really going to struggle to thrive in your business. So I was trying to figure out how it all linked. And then I just realized, I remember saying to you once, I keep feeling and hearing this Get Lit, and it doesn't really make sense to business coaching. And so it actually started as the membership, the click. It didn't really start as a brand at all. It's completely evolved over the last 2 years, but it started as my business coaching membership. So literally, I remember launching that. I remember you saying to me, you're not allowed to launch it until you've got a certain amount of one-to-one clients. And I was 2 clients away from that. And I was I'm doing it. And I launched it, and there was no content in there. I launched it really cheap. There was no content in there. And it was just a monthly membership, to which now we have 200 resources, all helping to help you dedicate your business. And grow and scale your business, start it. So I started the membership, and that was Get Lit at the time. That's kind of all it was. And over the years, it's just evolved into and I really embodied that before I moved on to something else. And when I moved on to something else, it was such an intuitive move that people had asked for. So we then started doing events. So I did an event. It was called Get Lit. and it was for business, like people who wanted to start a coach business. And then because a lot of my work around the time was, what is stopping you from starting your business? Rather than, one-to-one, I was working with people on like the marketing, the tools, the systems, the resources. But the main message behind the brand was, how can you believe in yourself enough to show up confidently and shine your light? And so then we ended up hosting events that were just personal development focused, but we tended to attract women who were ambitious and wanting to start a business. That's typically what we end up attracting.
Right.
Then after that, it turned into a podcast. And then after that, I like literally last year, at the end of last year, just sat down and was like, this business has become so much more, because then we launched the Killer Coach course, which was like my one-to-one coaching blueprint in a container, which was a group format. And I was like, all of a sudden we've got all these different workshops that are business, but also mindset focused. It was actually only really last year, end of last year, that I sat down and went, I need to reposition this entire brand because it's become a brand. And for the first time in all the times that I've ever launched a business, like Get Lit has really intuitively grown. I didn't launch the Killer Coach course just for the sake of it. I launched it because women kept coming to work with me one-to-one, and the investment of working with someone one-to-one is very high. And at the beginning, it's a big risk when you haven't earned any money. So then we started launching personal development courses as well. But that, again, it came off the back of people wanting that. And now we have coaches where I've spent 2 years building up coaches and helping them with their business. Now it's turned into those coaches work for Get Lit and they coach our clients that come to us. And that was a vision I had for sure 4 or 5 years ago for a different business. And it's all just naturally happened here. And it's been natural. It's really not been forced. And quite often I find myself having to sit down and go, okay, if I don't catch this now and put it into a position, then it's not going to happen, or it's going to get bigger than us. So I kind of almost have to go, okay, we need to make this a thing now, rather than like, what can I do next? So yeah, for me, Get Lit, like we've really repositioned this now as like your development hub, personal, business, career. And we're just at the beginning of that. And there's so many things that we want to do. But for me, the passion is helping women really light up and believe in themselves.
Becki, you're amazing. I adore you, and I'm so inspired by you. This is going to be
likewise
a transformational episode. I can't wait to share it. And so thank you for taking the time, and all the best with your book launch as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.